So that's a very important question. And as you know, fertility has been falling steeply in many parts of the world, including Thailand. And at the same time, that causes population aging. And so there's great concern about what the economic impacts of such low fertility and such rapid and deep population aging will be. And NTA, by estimating the intergenerational relationships and the sources of support for older people and for children, and where it comes from the government, through government programs, or from family support, all of these things help us to understand what low fertility and population aging will mean for the world. And that's why NTA, I think, has become so important for policymakers and for the general public to understand these issues. Okay, so what are the challenges and opportunities for implementing NTA in different countries? When Andy Mason and I started the NTA project as an international project, it was partly an experiment to see whether emerging economies with less complete statistical systems would be possible to support estimation of NTA. We didn't know, but it turned out that, in fact, most countries do have sufficient data to estimate all these complicated pieces of NTA. So one challenge is the heavy data demands. We don't have any new surveys that are done for NTA. We use existing data. So to our surprise, not every country, but most countries, even lower income countries, do have adequate data for doing much of it, maybe not every part of it. So that was one challenge. Another challenge is that it's really quite a complicated process. The methods are somewhat complicated, and they have to be done in the same way in every country, despite somewhat different data, so that the results will be comparable and we can study differences among countries and so on. This requires a lot of training effort for NTA teams, and fortunately there's also a very well done United Nations publication of a manual that describes in detail how to do the NTA, and some countries' teams have been able to do all the work just based on that manual. But that's the second challenge. So I'd say the opportunities for expanding it further are very great because the teams can be trained, the data is mostly there. But it already covers the populations of about 85% of the world, now I think 103 different countries. So we're there's not that much population left. It's even been possible for quite small countries with very small populations to do it, and they've been interested to do it, and they've done it. So this was all, I'd say, a surprise to Andy Mason and myself, but of course we're very excited and very pleased and very glad that it has turned out to be useful. I have to say, the first thing that's impressed me, and I think all of us involved in the project, is just the wonderful spirit of friendship and cooperation developing among the people involved through meetings like this and a lot of face-to-face contact and collaboration and so on. It is like an enormous family. But to get to the results of NTA, I'd say it's very interesting to see regional patterns, strong regional patterns. East Asia is the area that seems to have the strongest family support of the elderly, for example. Latin America, South America, has pretty much adopted European-style public pension programs at an early stage, despite their problems, and they're not always a very good fit for Latin America, but you see it in country after country. Europe, with its very generous social welfare programs, its very strong public education, which is a contrast to many Asian countries where private spending on education has a much more important role than public. All of these things were sort of surprising and interesting to us. We thought initially that the pattern of adult children supporting their elderly parents would be perhaps universal, particularly in emerging economies, but it turns out not to be the case. More typical, I'd say, is for the elderly parents to be helping to support their children and their grandchildren. That was a surprise as well.